Hello everyone, this is the group 1 and this is our video group presentation. And
I hope you enjoy. Bye-bye!
Good day. I am Robert Bongolan and we will talk about point of view. Point of view refers to the perspective from which a story is told. When a character in the story is telling the story, it is first person of point of view. When the story is told by a narrator outside of the story, it is called third person point of view. Memories and autobiographies are told in the first person of point of view. Instructions, manuals, how-to guides, and self-help books are usually written in the second perspectives. Most biographies are told in the third person by someone who is relating the information he has gathered about the story. The narrator of a story have an omniscient or limited view. Omniscient means all-knowing. If the narrator has an omniscient point of view, then he knows what is going on the middle of all the characters at all times. The reader gets to know what every character is thinking and feeling. Point of view, or POV, is the perspective of or angle from which a story is told. It answers the question, who is telling the story? Understanding POV is important because it affects how much information the reader knows and how the story feels. If the narrator has a limited point of view, then he doesn't know everything. Point of view can be limited in two ways. First person point of view, where a character in the story is telling the story. It is limited. That character can only know what is happening where he or she is can only describe how he or she only feels. Third person point of view can be limited if the narrator shadows one of the characters. So the narrator is not in the story, but he or she only describes the action surroundings a specific character. Now let's move on to the first person point of view. The narrator is a character in the story. They use the pronouns I, me, my, or we. The narrator tells the story from their experience. We only know what they know, feel, and see. It is a limited point of view. Example, when the bus came, I got on carrying my pink backpack. I was nervous on the first day of school. Number 2, third person limited point of view. The narrator is outside the story, not a character. They use he, she, or they. The narrator tells the story focusing on one character only. We only know the thoughts and feelings of that one character. Also limited, but from an outside perspective. Example, when the bus came, Sharon got on. She was nervous on the first day of school. Now, the last one is omniscient point of view. Omniscient means all-knowing. The narrator knows everything about every character. The narrator can tell the thoughts, feelings, and secrets of multiple characters. They know what happens anywhere and anytime in the story. This is the most powerful point of view. Example, Sharon was nervous. Kevin was nervous. He was thrilled to see Sharon. Now let's move on to the first person point of view. The narrator is a character in the story. They use the pronouns I, me, my, or we. The narrator tells the story from their experience. We only know what they know, feel, and see. It is a limited point of view. Example, when the bus came, I got on carrying my pink backpack. I was nervous on the first day of school. Number 2, third person limited point of view. The narrator is outside the story, not a character. They use he, she, or they. The narrator tells the story focusing on one character only. We only know the thoughts and feelings of that one character. Also limited, but from an outside perspective. Example, when the bus came, Sharon got on. She was nervous on the first day of school. Now, the last one is omniscient point of view. Omniscient means all-knowing. The narrator knows everything about every character. The narrator can tell the thoughts, feelings, and secrets of multiple characters. They know what happens anywhere and anytime in the story. This is the most powerful point of view. Example, Sharon was nervous. Kevin was nervous. He was thrilled to see Sharon.
So let's continue. Number 5 is mode and atmosphere. Characters and events are influenced by weather, temperature, lightning, and other tangible factors, which is time influence and emotional tenebrae, mode and atmosphere of a scene. So number 6 is we have climate. Climate is like to the geographic and topographic of a place and us in our real world can influence event and people. Oceans, current, prevailing winds and air masses, latitude, altitude, mountains, land masses, and large body of water all influence climate. It's it's especially important when you write about a real settings to understand climatic influence. Harsh climates can make for grim living, while tropical climates can create more carefree lifestyles. So number 7 is we have geography. This refers to specific aspects, water, landform, ecosystema, and photographic in your settings. Geographic also includes climate, soil, plants, trees, rock, and material, and souls. Geographic can create obvious influence in a story like a mountain character must climb, running river he must cross, or a boreal forest he must traverse to reach safety. No matter how story is set, whether it's mountain village in Quezon or an opulent resort in Boracay, world with all its geographic variations and influences must permit the story. So the summary is weather, temperature, lightning, and other physical elements shape a story, mood, and atmosphere. That is number 5. So number 6 is climate. Climate determined by factors like ocean, current winds, latitude, and landform affect people lifestyle, and the events that upholds harsh climate often creating creating longer lives, while tropical climates foster more relaxed ones. So the geographic is encompasses landforms, bodies of water, ecosystem, soils, plants, and materials, all of which can directly impact a story through obstacle and environment character must nega- navigate, whether the settings is a rural mountain village or luxurious island, resort, and natural world, and its geographic features should be deeply woven into the narrative. So that's it. So number 8 is we have man-made geography. There are few corners of the planet that have not been influenced by the land of humankind. It is our man-made influences that our creativity and the destructiveness of civilization can be seen. Readers want visual evidence in a story world, and man-made geographic is easily includes to provide it. With this in mind, make certain that your story contains proof of many footprints that people have left in its settings. Use the influence of humankind on geographic to lead authenticity to stories set in a real or famous locale. These landmarks include dams, bridges, ports, towns, and city. The monuments, burial ground, cemeteries, and famous buildings considered to the influences of humankind using the land and the effects of mines, deforestation, agriculture, irrigation, and rice plantation. So number 9 is eras of historical importance. So important events, war, or historical periods linked to the plot and theme might include the World War One and Two, the Philippine Revolution of 1998, or the Revolution 1960 86. Sorry, I mean. So number 10 is social and political cultural environment. Cultural, political, and social influences range widely and affect characters too many ways. The social era of influence character, values, social and family rules, and sensibilities. So let's go in the summary. So let's start the man-made geography. Reflect how human activity shape the physical world through structures like bridge, cities, monuments, dams, and cemeteries, as well as land use such as mining, agriculture, irrigation, and deforestation. Including these elements add authenticity and visual details to a story settings. So eras of historical importance such as World War One and Two, the Philippine Revolution of 1898, or the 1986 EDSA revolution can profoundly shape a story, plot, and themes. So, number 10 is social, political, and cultural environment. Influence characters' values, rules, behaviors, and perspective, with the social era shaping how they think, act, and relate to one another. So number 11 is population. Some places are densely populated while others are lonely places with only a few hardy souls. Or your story, needs a specific yet varied population that accurately reflects the place. Number 12 is ancestral influence. In many regions in the Philippines, the ancestral influence of the Spaniard are prominent, prominent, but we can also find ancestral influences from the Chinese, Americans, and the Muslims. Ancestral influence can be depicted in cuisines, dialogue, values, attitude, and general outlooks. So, population. Population is some place are densely populated. For example, a big place which is many peoples live there. So this place is many people populated or have own stories and have their reflection to their lived experiences of daily lives. So number 12 is ancestral influence. So ancestral influence, for example, in Philippine regions, so example, let's go to the Philippines. Philippines have many regions that we can found, for example, Spaniard, not only Spaniard, but also Chinese, Americans, and also the Muslim ancestral influence. Can be depicted in cuisine, dialogue, values, attitude, and general outlook. So, as ancestral influence is this is the ancestral that founds in many countries, like for example the Philippines.
Good day. So now we tackle about style. Style refers to the language convention used to construct the story. A writer can manipulate diction, sentence structure, phrasing, dialogue, and other aspects of language to create style. Now, style means it's the unique way a writer writes. Oh, now, style means is the unique way a writer writes. It is how the author uses words, sentence, and language to tell the story. So next is symbol. Symbol is a literary device that contains several layers of meaning, often concealed at first sight, and is representative or several other aspects, concepts, traits than those that are visible in the literal translation alone. It is using an object or action that means something more than its literal meaning. Also, means is a symbol meaning malalim na kahulugan or deep meaning about that object or things.
Another example is Cain and Abel. The two brothers stood for good and evil, humanity and pride. Cain pulled Abel to the field and killed him. In this, it is a hidden symbols. It's a showing that Cain stands for the bad and Abel stands for a good. The ability to recognize and interpret symbols requires experiences in a literary readings, perception, and tact. It's easy to run while symbols to find symbols everywhere. The ability to interpret symbols is essential to the full understanding and enjoyment of literature.
Given below are helpful suggestions for identifying literary symbols. Number 1. The story itself must furnish a clue that a detail is to be taken symbolically. Symbols nearly always signal their existence by emphasis, repetition, or position. This idea is often associated with the work of critic and scholar. Clint Brooks, who argued that symbols in literature are often highlighted through various techniques, inviting the reader to interpret their meaning. Number 2. The meaning of a literary symbol must be established and supported by entire context of the story. A symbol has its meaning inside, not outside the story. This means that a symbol's meaning is unique to the narrative and is shaped by the events, characters, themes, and tone of the story. Number 3. To be called a symbol, an item must suggest a meaning different in kind from its literal meaning. To qualify a symbol, the item must have a meaning that goes beyond its surface level interpretation, and this meaning should be different in kind, not just in degree. Number 4. A symbol has a cluster meaning. This means that a symbol can represent multiple themes, ideas, or concepts simultaneously, and its meaning can be complex and layered.
So let's proceed to the next topic. Theme. Theme is the meaning or concept we are left with after reading a piece of writing. It can be a revelation of human character, or it may be stated briefly or at great length. It develops from the interplay of character and plot. A theme is a central and unifying concept of the story. So, the theme is the central idea or message of a story. It is what readers understand about life or human nature after reading. So, these are the three requirements of a good theme must. So, in the number one, it says that explain all major details of the story. Then, number two is not be contradicted by any part of the text. And the last one is number three, avoid relying on facts outside the story. The theme comes from the text itself. So, the theme is not the moral of the story. Instead, it is the author's way of sharing ideas, feelings, and experiences. It may be stated directly or implied. So, the next one is tone. Tone is the writer's attitude toward his or her subject matter. For example, the tone of a biography can be admiring or critical, fawning or hostile. hostile. Many biographers start with a reverential attitude toward their subject, become antagonistic as the work bogs down, and and end on a worship tone. For instance, if the author is listing reasons and answering likely objections in advance, the tone is argumentative or persuasive. If the writer goes on and on about the snowy picture perfect holidays of childhood, nostalgic is good bet. So, the tone is the writer's attitude toward the subject or the audience. It can be admiring, angry, humorous, gloomy, sarcastic, or many others. To identify tone, imagine how the author sounds based on the words used and how the message is expressed. So, here are some examples of different tones from the text. When you're determining tone, hear the writing in your head. Put yourself in the author's shoes and imagine what she feels. So, the first example here is patriotic tone. It says that, and so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. It is by John F. Kennedy. This tone shows love for one's country. It encourages people to serve and help their nation. In the example by John F. Kennedy, the speaker tells about to think about what they can do for their country, not what the country can give them. This message inspires national pride and responsibility, which is why it is called patriotic. The next example is aggressive tone. Can someone tell me what the hell is going on here? So, why is it called aggressive tone? Or why is it sounds in aggressive tone? An aggressive tone sounds angry, forceful, and demanding. In the example, the speaker demands an answer in a harsh way. The words show impatience and anger, not calmness. That's why the tone is called aggressive. So the next one is sarcastic tone. I will read the first example. All morons have or hate ay, all morons hate it when you call them a moron. A sarcastic tone uses mocking or teasing words to criticize someone. The example sounds like it is praising, but it is really making fun of people. The real meaning is the opposite of what is being said. That's why the tone is called sarcastic. Gloomy tone. And the trees all died. They were orange trees. I don't know why they died. They just died. Something wrong with the soil possibly, or maybe the stuff we got from the nursery was not the best. We complained about it. So we've got 30 kids there. Each kid had his or her own little tree to plant. And we've got these 30 dead trees. All these kids looking at these little brown sticks. It was depressing. The School by Donald Bottomley. A gloomy tone feels dark, sad, and depressing. In the example, the trees died and the children were surrounded by lifeless plants. The situation feels hopeless and heavy. That's why it is called gloomy tone. So let's proceed to the last example, the unhappy tone. I will read it. I shall be telling this with a sigh. Summer ages and ages hence. Two roads diverge in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by I traveled by, and that has made all the difference. The road not taken by Robert Frost. An unhappy tone shows sadness, regret, or disappointment. In the poem The Road Not Taken, the speaker talks about choices in the life with a sigh. This shows regret and emotional weight. That is why the tone is called unhappy. So, to summarize, the theme expresses the central idea of a story, while the tone shows the author's attitude. And that's all. Thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something about our report. Bye bye.